Today's episode of the Get Your Comic On podcast may contain mild spoilers for the movies, shows, comic books, and games that we're discussing. And, if you're lucky, there might be some PG-13 language. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Hey super friends, my name is Neil and welcome to this part one of the end of 2025. We are back with a two-part brand new episode where we're going to be wrapping up all of the things that we have been watching and reading this year and giving you our favorites and arguing probably over what has been the best movie, the best TV show, or the best comic book. So who better to join me to wrap things up than Aaron and Michael? How you doing, guys?
Good, thank you. I'm looking forward to talking about films, TV, and comics. And I realised
You were there at the beginning of the year when we did the What Are We Excited For? You were there in the middle to force me back to work with the How's It Gone So Far?
Yeah, and I will be honest, I looked at my TV list and it was identical to the one in the middle of the year, and then I desperately tried to binge watch some shows a couple weeks ago to try and fill in some gaps. So hopefully it's a bit different between now and
I
then.
had that same panic where I was like, oh, hang on a minute. I'm pretty sure a lot of the films that I've really enjoyed this year were really early in this year, which doesn't say much for the second half. So I do apologize if you listened to our mid-year and there is, not a lot of variation. But we have Michael, who is gonna, throw some interesting stuff at you, right?
Am I the designated wild card of this conversation?
You are the designated wild card in any conversation.
Ain't that the truth? No, I'm excited. I think I'm the most excited to talk about comics, weirdly. I know we obviously talk about movies and TV a lot, TV shows a lot, but I've read some really good comics this year, so I feel like it's really exciting.
That is the perfect way to lead into this first part, which is going to be purely on comic books. So for this first part of our wrap up, we are going to be talking about our top 5 favorite comic books, each which we have read this year. Then in part 2, which will be coming very, very soon, we're going to be talking about movies and TV. And that is because whenever I record an episode, I normally end by saying we've not given comic books enough space on this podcast, which is something we need to work on for next year. So we are giving them their own hour or however long this podcast will run for so that we can run through all of our favorites. And actually, I figure between the three of us as well, this is going to be a really interesting conversation because Aaron, as we know, like king of the indies, me, DC, and Michael, I feel like you're a bit of a balance. You are in between us because you do the Harley stuff, you do the Poison Ivy stuff, you do dip into like the superhero stuff, but then you've got like the Something Is Killing the Children and the slightly more indie stuff. So you're sort of the in-betweener on this.
Yeah, I've covered quite a lot. Like I was looking today at the website and there's a lot of different stuff that I've covered this year. So a lot of Harley, a lot of DC, but some really good little side quest comics that I've covered. So yeah. It's very exciting.
So I'm excited to dive in. And please do, as you are listening to this or watching this on whatever platform that you are tuning in on, make sure to leave a comment or hit us up on social media and let us know what your favorites have been this year as well. Usual platforms, you can find us at Get Your Comic On and let us know what your favorite reads have been this year. So I'm going to go to you first, Aaron. Give us your number 5. Checking you're awake.
So I think my number 5 when we spoke earlier in the year was Barstow and is still a very good one. But in the second half of this year, a comic came along that was very similar in tone to Barstow. This is the thing, I like them both equally, but I think I like this one a little bit more, and that is, I'm going to probably butcher the pronunciation of this, Texarkanum.
Texarkanum, nice.
Yeah, I always, whenever I see it spelled out, I'm like, oh, it's pronounced this way, and then I go to pronounce it, and then I feel like I butcher it every time. But it is a brilliant comic. Do you want me to give like a rough synopsis of it?
Please do, yeah, go for it.
Because I've never heard of it, so please do tell.
So it is a Dark Horse comic, and essentially each episode, God, I think I did this on the last one as well. They're called issues episodes. On each issue is its own self-contained story within this kind of not futuristic, like near future America, where demons, ghosts, gods, and all these things just kind of exist. And you're following this cowboy and arcanist called Avery Bell, who's just kind of going from point A to point B and helping people out with that. He's like an exorcist, basically, but he's also a cowboy. And I think in the first issue, I described the tone as like No Country for Old Men meets Hellboy. That's kind of the best way to sum it up. It has a serious tone and it's very dark, but at the same time does not take itself seriously in the slightest, especially because the narration that Avery has is just so dry and sarcastic and really funny at times. He's very similar to Hellboy in the sense that like he's just doing it just because he has to and kind of doesn't give a crap really, but he's just doing it because he has to do it. And it is really good. It's violent. It's very gory. It very much leans into horror in its second issue, and I like the fact that sometimes it will go for full-on action, sometimes it will go for full-on horror, and you never quite know which direction it's going to go. Nice. But it will be one of those two roads. And the sprinkle of humor in there is just a nice added touch, but it is a really good one. I do love Barstow a lot, but I had to give the 5th place to this one because it hasn't been talked about yet, and it is really good. It is really, really good.
I'm trying to remember, and you're going to look at me now and say, why are you asking me this? How many issues there's been so far?
So I'm currently scrolling through to find it. I know it's a mini series. I want to say it's a mini series of, I want to say 12 issues.
Yeah.
No, completely wrong. 4. I don't know where I got 12 from. It's a mini series of 4 issues. So I think when it gets released in like a collected omnibus format, it will be a nice, quick, easy, simple read.
Nice.
The first 2 issues are fantastic. I need to read the 3rd and 4th one, but the fact that I'm recommending this just from the first 2 issues alone is kind of saying something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is really good. It's fun. It's gruesome. It's kind of gross in places, especially the illustrations can be quite gnarly at times. But if you're a fan of Hellboy and Barstow, very tonally, it's kind of a nice in between of those two things.
Awesome. Great first choice. Michael, come to you. Number 5 comic book.
So my number 5 comic book is Harley Quinn. I mean, she was going to be on this list regardless.
First of the big boy comic books out there.
Yeah, so Harley's obviously my favorite comic book character, so probably a little bit biased, but this run, specifically like this year and the issues we've had this year have been just really good. Like the comic style, like the comedic tone of it's really good. The art style has been really good. The story goes in and out have been like amazing and just really solid. Like it kind of dips, but it's consistently really solid. So yeah, it's been great. Harley's entire journey this year has been kind of fighting against like her old neighborhood, been kind of gentrified, which is really funny.
Oh, nice.
So like,
yeah,
she likes it, the fact that people get stabbed on the corner of the street, and she likes the fact that people get mugged, and she doesn't want like a fancy coffee shop. So that's been her whole kind of storyline. So it's such a Harley Quinn thing to do, and it weaves in and out the kind of meta fourth wall breaking, which I really like. She does there's a really good way that they do it. So yeah, Harley Quinn, number 5.
Wow. Okay. Mine is, I'm pretty sure it's one that was on my list when we did our middle of the year, but mine is Power Rangers Prime from Boom, written by Melissa Flores with art by Michael Ng. It is this, and so people have heard me talk about this quite a lot. It's this reinvention of Power Rangers. It's the first time they've done an original lineup for the comics. So there are some characters that pull from the continuity of the TV shows, but they've done an original lineup for comics, and there are some very original characters in there, and it's kind of a reimagining of the universe. it has been so much fun to read because it's really unpredictable, because it is this new mix of characters and this new take on it. So Rita is very, very different. Characters that you would expect to be there are not there. Ones who are there are in very different positions to where we've seen them in before. So it's very much like almost like an Elseworlds version of Power Rangers, but it's really interesting. And it's on an Earth that has been taken over in the past. It's slightly in our future, but it's like an alternate future where Zordon's people have taken over Earth and kind of occupy Earth, but they've done it to help humanity. So we're supposed to think that they're the good guys, but really they're occupying Earth. So there's a lot of kind of socio-political dynamics and stuff in there as well. So it speaks to that whole idea that Power Rangers has a message and a kind of emotional story to tell, as well as just the action and the monsters. But it's been really measured pacing all the way through this first. I think we're at kind of issue 14 or something like that right now. So we're just past the first year. And really the whole first year of the book has been forming the team. So you know how that would be like the first episode of the season. If you go back to like Mighty Morphin, they're pretty much formed by the end of that first episode, and then that's it, they're a team. Imagine stretching that out across like 12 months. It's been really, really like slow to dive into who all of these people are and what their individual issues are. There's parental issues, there's relationship issues, there's gender issues. All of it is in there. It's like pretty wide ranging. So it's very contemporary in the way it reflects the way the characters are and who they are and how they identify. So it's just been really cool. It's really cool to see Power Rangers slowed down to that effect, and not just solely focusing on the flashy weapons and the fighting. That is obviously still in there, and they even brought in the VR Troopers, which is another classic TV show from that era from the same producers, and they've now spun off into their own like spin-off mini-series as well. It's a rebuilding an entire Power Rangers universe from the start, and it's been really, really cool. So that is my number 5 for the year. Power Rangers Prime. Boom, for those who read comics digitally, Boom has changed ownership this year, and so a lot of their books became completely unavailable digitally for a while, and they're now going back and filling in the gaps. So they are now available again. So if you had started reading this digitally and you were wondering where it had gone, it is now back. But you can pick up hard copies in comic book stores, and in fact, there are 2 collected editions available so far, and I'm quoted on the back of the brand new one.
Hey,
Nice.
love that.
So actually, it's probably a really good thing that it made my list, considering it was,
I kind of love that, like, old franchises like Power Rangers and Transformers are getting like a new lease of life in comic books.
So it's great. That sounded really disingenuous. It's great. No, you're totally right though, because they just perfectly lend themselves to comic books. And I'm sure Transformers has had many, many, many different versions over the years, but none that I have really tapped into all that much until this current Image run. And Power Rangers, I think it was at DC for a while. It's been around the houses. Like the license has moved around a bit, and I had some comics when I was a kid, but they were very much the like real kid friendly, just like scrappy artwork, recreating episodes rather than doing this whole original thing. So I know exactly what you mean, and I completely agree. It's cool to see all those old IPs. Like Captain Planet has a comic book which is really, really good that's running at the moment by David Pepose. He's also doing Space Ghost, which is really, really cool. You've got Gargoyles, which is running over at Dynamite as well. Dynamite's just picked up the license to Buffy and Angel. They're going to be doing some new comics next year based in that world. It's cool to see a lot of like the TV stuff from when we were younger finding a new life this way. Very, very cool. Aaron, number 4.
My number 4. So my number 4 and my number 3 kind of keep swapping places, but I'm gonna go with the one I'm gonna go with.
Lock it in.
And that is a series that started at the back end of last year. It's got a special place in my heart because it is the first series I covered for Get Your Comic Con. And that is well, at least I think it is. Might be the second. I can't remember. And that is the Tin Can Society, which sadly its last issue is in a week or 2. And I don't really want to see this series come to an end.
Yeah.
But it is by, I want to say Image. Yeah, Image Comics, written by Peter Warren and with artwork by Francesco Mobili, and it is a brilliant. I want to say drama thriller, but
Yeah.
it's a weird one to kind of categorize because it dips into sci-fi a little bit. It dips into character drama about this group of friends that haven't seen each other for years, and then they're trying to like figure out if they're backstabbing each other. There's political thriller elements to it. It's kind of dabbling in a lot of things whilst also trying to raise awareness of themes about like treatment of disabilities and stuff like that.
Yes. We've talked about that before, yeah.
Yeah, it is a fascinating series. I think I even mentioned this in the previous halfway through the year episode, is that it did start to take the mick a little bit, whereby every issue was ending on a cliffhanger or a massive revelation. And even though I get why they were doing it and that it was trying to pull the rug out from you every single episode,
Yep.
it got to the point where it was like, we're at issue 6 now, and you've done it for like the 4th time in a row, and it's getting a bit ridiculous. But considering how issue 8 played out and ended, where they didn't do that, and it's literally just, right, we've done all the twists we need to, we're now just in the end game. I'm really intrigued to see how this series ends, because I think even in its weakest issues, it's still been really well written, really solid, and it's always putting its characters first and at the forefront, which I think is brilliant. Yeah, the action is great in it. The story is, I mean, it's brilliant because it just keeps going every single direction you could possibly want it to and more. And I cannot recommend it enough. I think the collected version of it, like in trade paperback form, comes out, I want to say late January, might be early February, I'm not sure.
We're crossing our fingers for that back cover.
Really hoping. But yeah, I highly recommend when that trade paperback comes out. That is probably the best way to read it, because having read it like with several months passing in between each issue has been kind of nail biting in terms of like, I just want the next one. Whereas I feel like reading it in one full sweep will be a better experience. But it is a brilliant read, great storytelling, and it just kind of proves that Image are great at doing what they. It's that sort of Image style where it's just like great storytelling, great visuals. It's just another great Image comic.
It was not the first comic book that you reviewed for us. The first comic book that you reviewed for us was Labyrinth, issue number 1.
I knew it was one of the two.
It was only 2 weeks before. You were really close.
Yeah.
You are synonymous with this book in my mind, just because that it goes all the way back there to October 2024. And I know how much it has meant to you and how much you have enjoyed reading it and reviewing it, not necessarily reviewing every single one, because we've given you lots of time to just enjoy certain issues as well, which I think is really important when you review comic books, is to not be consistently switched on. Like you don't necessarily have to do everyone if you don't want to. Sweet. I promise my number 4 didn't exist when we did the middle of the year one, so it's going to be a brand new one when we get there. But before we do, Michael, unveil number 4.
So similar to my last one, it's another Harley Quinn comic, but this one a little different because it's the Gotham City Sirens Unfit for Orbit series.
Nice. The short, like weekly release one.
Yeah, so I think there was only maybe like 6 or 8 issues. It wasn't a very long run. It was a very short little burst, but it was so well done, and the characters they just worked. Like the Sirens to me have always struggled a little bit because obviously you've got a lot to balance. But in this issue, they really find a good sweet spot of that kind of camp but funny, but very action packed, and it's very like Gotham focused, and it kind of ticks all the boxes that you want, or at least boxes I wanted. And yeah, it just had that thing about it that I could not wait for the next issue. I found myself really wanting the next one, which I don't always get. Sometimes I'm happy to wait, sit with it. But this one, I was like, I need it. I need to know what happens. I need to know where they're going. I need to know what they're doing.
Because they end up in space in this one, don't they?
Yeah, they end up in space for a brief minute. And it's when you first hear it, you're like, how the hell does Harley Quinn and Catwoman How are they going to space?
space.
How does that make any sense at all? And it doesn't really, I guess. Like when you read it, it is kind of a bit batshit, but it does make sense. It's kind of cool the way they get there, and the stuff they've got to do to get out of space is pretty fun. So yeah, that is my number 4 of the year.
This seems to be becoming a bit of an annual event because they did one last year as well, where they blasted them out over the space of like one issue a week for a few weeks.
Yeah.
I can't remember the subtitle of what it. Oh, because I did review it, but it was just, I think it was just called Gotham City Sirens, where this was Gotham City Sirens Unfit for Orbit.
Yeah,
Oh, that was July. How was that? How was that July that started?
it was crazy. A long time
So
ago.
it ran for 5 issues. I love the covers. The covers are so cool on this
It
series.
was so beautiful. Like every page was just so well done, and
Yeah.
just the kind of like the outfits they had them in. Like every issue, they had like different outfits in some way, shape,
Yeah.
or form, and they
I
just
think
looked really cool.
it landed so well last time that they were like, just flip that, like just dial it up even more and make it as wacky as possible. So it was Leah Williams was the writer, the artist was Haining, and then Ivan Placencia was on colors. Covers were Terry Dodson. Oh, Terry and Rachel Dodson. Yeah, their covers are brilliant. They're so cool. I don't know if they're going to do another one next year. I don't think they've announced. But as they've done it the last 2 years, I think if it's been a hit, they will absolutely do it again because people do love to see those characters together. But it doesn't seem to work in like an ongoing, like long running thing. It seems that this like short burst used to work better for it.
I honestly think that lends itself to the characters though, because like when you read the story, the way they kind of collide into each other, and they don't really want to be near each other for too long. They know they've got to stick with each other for this small contained amount of time and then disband. So I kind of like that the comic mirrors how they are as a group. There's something about it that works for me.
Because Harley and Ivy are quite separate at the moment, aren't they? If I'm not mistaken, in their individual solo titles.
Yeah, kind of. In the most recent issue of Ivy, they start to come back in.
Yes,
they start to come back into each other again, and they do reference each other's comic book runs and what they're up to.
Interesting.
But I do think Harley's comic is a little bit better than Ivy's comic. So,
you and I have talked about where your feelings currently are on Ivy at the moment. I think.
Yeah, it's not on my list, put it that way, but it's not bad. Like Ivy is good. It's just it's suffering from a little bit of direction, but it's kind of found it again. So let's hope that it sticks to landing.
Nice. So my number 4 is an IDW book, which this is where I have to be really careful because it's one I've had a sneaky peek of, so I could say things that have not yet been published. It's Star Trek: The Last Starship. So 2 issues are available in stores now. Issue 3 is releasing this month. It's Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, who I have interviewed on this podcast before and who I have raved about on this podcast before at the beginning of the year or when we were wrapping up last year, maybe. At some point, I've talked about how much I was loving their Star Trek run. Their Star Trek run came to an end and we had a little gap, just a couple of months where a bunch of different Star Trek books launched. So we had Red Shirts, which could easily have made my list that's just wrapped up. We've got Star Trek Voyager Homecoming, which has got 1 issue left. And then we have this book, which is Star Trek: The Last Starship, that is unraveling at the moment. This one is a really interesting one. So it's set... How do I explain this for people that don't not watch every single episode of Star Trek? So it's set in the future, like the future of Star Trek. So imagine like Star Trek: The Next Generation and then go future, but not as far into the future as Star Trek Discovery went. So it's kind of between the present day of Star Trek and the future of Star Trek Discovery Season 3 onwards. And it tells the story of what happens to the Federation after the incident which you see in Season 3 of Discovery, which is called the Burn, which is where all of the engines on basically every spaceship blew up because the fuel that they were using exploded and absolutely billions of people were wiped out across the galaxy. So it's this story about how the Federation tries to bring itself back together and reunite all of these worlds when they suddenly lost the ability to travel the way that they had been traveling around space. and no one knows why it happened. Everyone is mourning the fact that there are genuinely billions and billions of people dead from every species, and everyone is in mourning. Everyone is pointing fingers at each other. So there's quite a lot of politics in there as well as to like old wars like the Federation and the Klingons. They're kind of at each other's throats again because they're blaming each other, saying, you know, was it you that did this? And so a character who I will not spoil from Star Trek Picard seasons 1 and 2 reappears and helps the Federation to reincarnate the rather legendary Captain James T. Kirk, who is then alive in the kind of 31st, 32nd century, trying to help unravel this mystery and help bring a bit of peace and stability to things, because he was deemed a historical figure that could help bring peace during wartime. So it's this story about him as a bit of a fish out of water, trying to figure out life hundreds of years in the future when everyone is dead, that he's known and loved. But when the galaxy is in a really horrible position where things are kind of falling apart. So it gives them a chance to do this story that doesn't feel unlike what the world is like outside your window, where everyone is at each other's throats and everything is burning, but told through this really, really Star Trek lens, featuring some really iconic characters just in these really new situations. So we're really early on. I have a chance to read. IDW gave me a chance to kind of read 3 issues and give some feedback on it and give some thoughts on it really early on, which I was really grateful for. But it's just a really interesting story that you would probably never ever get in a movie or in a TV show. So it's cool to see it unravel in a comic book, and it has really, really wonderful artwork by Adrian Bonilla. It's very, very stylish. It's not your traditional kind of TV adaptation in a comic book, which can sometimes, people will be groaning if they read my reviews, because I talk about how sometimes artists, when they get a book like this, are like, it must look like William Shatner, or, you know, if it's a Next Generation book, it's like it must look like Patrick Stewart. When I feel like you can find the essence of a character without having to just like draw the face with pinpoint accuracy for the actor. But this is really, really stylish and really dynamic and really colorful. It's very, very cool. So it's an exciting Star Trek read, and I had to have a Star Trek book in my list because I always do. So that is my number 4.
Lovely.
Number three. Okay, this is another one that I mentioned halfway through the year. It is another Image comic, and I've just realised as well. You said I was the king of indie. My number 1 throws that out the window.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the plot.
Spoiler alert. Okay, I look forward to that.
I'm laying the seeds. So my number 3, is The Lucky Devils. By
Nice.
Charles Soule with artwork by Ryan Brown. This is their second.
Genius.
Yeah, this is like their second or third collaboration, I think. And I think I'm going to repeat what I said halfway through the year, which is that this comic is bonkers. It is nuts. The main premise is that you have these 2 devils in hell that are trying to work their way up the hierarchy, and by doing so, the only way that they can do it is by manipulating 2 humans into doing each of the 7 deadly sins, and therefore that gives them more power in the hell hierarchy. It's absolutely insane.
I love
like
hearing you read the book.
Yeah, that's the only way to describe it, because the first issue sets the premise off perfectly and kind of dips your toe in a little bit to how nuts it's gonna get. And then second issue onwards, it just goes for it. The visuals, like the artwork by Ryan Brown is so vibrant and colorful, to the point where it can kind of hurt your eyes. Like it's that bright and colorful. Like I don't know how I'm mincing my words here, but like the way that it visualizes hell is like is unlike anything I've seen in any form of medium. It's like a weird cross between Tim Burton and the Constantine film version of hell, where it's like a nuke's gone off in a city. Like just the way they visualized hell in this comic series is just like unique, but also something we've seen a million times before. But plus, there's like a weird cat bus thing straight out of My Neighbor Totoro, which is also just going around hell. Like it's like the two of them are coming up with every idea they can come up with within this concept and is just throwing it at the wall, and everything seems to stick.
Yeah.
The characters are great, whether it's the two human characters that these devils are manipulating, or the devils themselves have so much personality to them. They genuinely feel like two best mates that have known each other for years, which is weird to say about two devil creatures. But yeah, it is a weird read. It is quite funny. It doesn't hold back in any way, shape, or form. And I think it's nearing its end.
I was just thinking that it must
We're
be. Yeah.
on, so it's 9 issues. The 6th one drops on New Year's Eve, and then there are 2 more after that. So we're about just over the halfway point.
Okay.
But it is well worth your time. I mean, it's Charles Soule. You can't really go wrong with Charles Soule anyway. But yeah, it is worth it if you're looking for something that's a little bit unhinged. Well, I say a little bit. It is very unhinged, and is just an absolute blast to read.
Because obviously I've heard you talk about this before from the halfway mark, and I think I said back then that I was going to wait until it was finished so that I could just read a collector's edition, and I feel like I've been waiting forever because I just want to dive into it.
Yeah,
I will hold out for when it is finished properly.
It's a weird one. It started in January this year, and then it's going to finish, I think, early February next year. So
yeah, because it's not been monthly; it's been a bit more like bi-monthly almost.
Yeah, it started off monthly. I'm looking at the release things now, and it's played out a little bit similarly to Tin Can Society, where like the first 3 was once a month, and then after that it was like sporadic in terms of like, oh, one will come 3 months later, one will come a month later.
Been a bit of a year.
Yeah, it kind of throws me off when they commit to something and then just after like the 3rd or 4th issue just decide to release it whenever. It kind of throws you off.
It's a really big issue for a lot of people with Marvel and DC because they have a lot of books that they will announce that get thrown off a bit. There's been a lot this year about Batman because Chip Zdarsky wrapped up his run on Batman, and then we went into the Hush 2 arc, which Jim Lee, who is the head of the company, came down to draw every single issue, which he hasn't done in years. And that was supposed to go for 6 months before the new Batman #1. But we got 3 of them and then a massive gap because of just production delays. And that production delays seem to have been a bit of a demon of 2025's comic books, unfortunately. But that should not put anybody off reading anything. It's just, it helps you make that decision about whether you're going to wait for something as a trade paperback or whether you're going to try and keep up with it as it releases.
No, definitely.
Okay. Michael, number 3.
Number 3. Well, speaking of delays, if you want a comic book series where you're not going to have to wait for a long time because there's a lot of it to read, then this option is the perfect read. So my number 3 is the crown jewel, in my opinion, of Boom Studios, Something is Killing the Children.
I wondered where this is going to land in your chart.
Yeah, there's 2 above it, which is quite hard to do because this comic is honestly one of my favorites to ever exist. So that says a lot about the 2 that are above it.
It certainly does.
But yeah, it's really good. Obviously, it's been running for a long time at this point, so there is a good chunk of it to read. So if you want a good chunky read, this is the one to go into.
This is a series I have never read, and I feel like it should fall right into my wheelhouse as a Buffy fan because it doesn't feel a million miles away from that kind of premise.
No, it's not. It's so good. If you're a fan of kind of ooky spooky or like 80s horror or like the supernatural, then this series is completely up your street because it's all of that and then a little bit more. So yeah, what's fun about this year's comics in this for Something is Killing the Children is it's jumped back and forth quite a lot between the present and the past, which it's never really done before. So our main character Erica, we've really got to know her more than we've ever really known her before. Obviously as a hunter, she's very well known for being this very stoic, very badass character, but you kind of see a peek behind the curtain. Well, at least you have done all of this year. And then it comes back to the present in a really cool way, and it doesn't cheapen going back to the history, because sometimes and I said this in my review, I feel like sometimes when comics go back, they kind of lose momentum. And sometimes you struggle to go back to the present because you've gone so far back. It
Yeah.
kind of loses that factor of, well, why did we do that?
Yeah.
But I would argue that this does it really well, because when it snaps back to the future, it has a really good reason why we jumped back. So
That's
yeah.
cool.
So
Ooh.
number 3, that Something Is Killing the Children. Loved
Good
it.
time for them to do some of that filling in the gaps on Erica as well, because I was just trying to remember in the back of my mind whether I just completely fabricated this entire story, but I quickly searched it on the website and no, it's true that they just announced that they're working on both a feature film and an adult animated series based on this title. So it has been, the licensing has all been sold, and they're working with Blumhouse to develop an animated series and a movie based on the book. And so it's James Tynion IV and Werther Del Edera. James is amazing. James did amazing work when he was the writer on Batman. His run on Batman was brilliant. Great writer as well. He also did an indie book of mine that was a favorite of mine a couple of years ago called Wind, spelt with a Y, like a D&D-esque fantasy. Go on, sorry.
I was going to say, did he do The Nice House on the Lake?
Yes.
Yes.
And The Nice House by the Sea, which is
one
coming
of,
back soon.
yeah, that's one of his I have read, and I really, really like that one. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to see.
I covered The Nice House by the Sea, which was pretty good as well, which was the sequel to The Nice House by the Lake.
Yeah, that one. So that one stopped because DC has shifted some stuff from Black Label to the relaunch of Vertigo, which is happening next month. And Nice House by the Sea returns as one of the launch titles for DC Vertigo, which puts it right at the heart of like DC's horror branch.
Nice. It is a good read, to be fair. I think his writing is it really is my kind of vibe. I really like the dark and the gritty and the more out there and everything that he's written that I've read.
Really well.
Yeah. It's very complex and rich, but in a way that's really approachable. You never feel like you're being pandered to, but there's a lot of like dark and deep stuff on the table, which makes it a really good read. Like you never at a loss for entertainment, put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, which brings us to my next book, which I nearly flipped my order around slightly, but no, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with the way I wrote it down earlier, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, IDW. There's a lot of IDW on this list. So this is the Jason Aaron and Juan Ferreira run, which is actually just wrapped up, and they have just they've moved on after a year of writing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and we have now passed the torch over to Gene Lun Yang and Freddie E. Williams, who just dropped their first issue last week. Such a different vibe for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. One that takes a bit of getting used to, but was really well self-contained in this 12-month story. Because TMNT had finished like 150 issue run, like a really long one, like a mega long one that had all these different arcs that built one on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other, to the point where there was just so much continuity that they went, right, kind of bring this to an end and do something fresh. Which was when Jason stepped on board. And he did this run that separated the four turtles to begin with. And so the first 4 issues, each one dealt with a different one of them, and it's where they were at this point. And you had Raphael in prison, seemingly for like an attempted murder. Michelangelo was living in Japan and was the star of a TV show. Donatello was, as a Donnie fan, heartbreakingly just this complete shell of a former like person. He just he'd become this really skinny, emaciated, just he completely lost himself after Splinter had died, and Leonardo just blamed himself for everything, that they'd all fallen apart. And what the whole year became about was about them coming back together and dealing with their issues to be brothers again. And the entire city had turned against them as well, so they weren't welcome in New York. The Foot Clan was basically, they were entrenched in the local government, in all of the like they were running the city basically. So it was very not what you would expect from a TMNT book, although all the classic characters were all in there. And it was really difficult to read at times, like really difficult, because he really like dug into these four brothers that we, you know, if you're old like me, you grew up with the original cartoon, which is just awesome. I've been rewatching the original movies because they're now out in 4K. It is nothing like that. It really is them as fractured as they can possibly be, and it's a really interesting self-contained 12-month story to bring them back together. And I very nearly made it my number 2, but it didn't quite make it there. But it's incredible, and what Gene Lung Yang is now doing from issue 13 onwards is a new story, but a new story that reflects that they're in the position that Jason got them to at the end of his story. So it's not just like 12 months and we've forgotten about it. It's 12 months and we move on with a lot of emotional scars based on what they have been through. But it's a very grown-up version of TMNT in a not violent way, because we've seen them do violent before. This is a psychologically very, very rich story about who they are as people, which is really interesting to read.
It's really good.
I was actually going to say, going off of what we kind of said earlier with Transformers and Power Rangers, I like the different avenues they've taken with TMNT in comic book form. Like you've had that, I think, because I haven't read it consistently, but I've like dipped in and out of different things. Like I've read The Last Ronin. I think I even reviewed Godzilla X TMNT, which they did earlier, and I like the fact that they're kind of using the TMNT franchise as a bit of a playing ground to try a bit of everything.
Yeah, because they've also done 3 TMNT versus Batmans, and I think we're on our 3rd TMNT X Mighty Morphin Power Rangers as well. So they cross over loads, which is really fun when you get to see a turtle morphed.
Imagine I was going to say,
morphed turtle.
Did they cross over with Stranger Things at one point?
Yes, and also Ghostbusters as well.
I love that.
There's some cool spin-offs at the moment as well. So there's a Casey Jones book that's released a couple of issues. There's a Shredder book that's done 2 or 3 issues. There's a lot of really cool stuff happening in that universe. They've really, I mean, it's probably their biggest bit of IP at IDW, but they've really, having got past this, the big mammoth 150 odd issue run, they really did just like strip it right the way back to the core of who the characters are, and then figure out how to build the world out and tell lots of fun different stories in different avenues in different ways, without it having to rely on you reading everything, because they're all happening kind of in their own little pocket version of that world. So it's not the kind of thing where you need to know everything that's happening in the main book to know what's happening if they cross over with Godzilla, or you don't need to know what's happening in the main book to know what's happening in the Shredder book, because he's not in the main book at the moment. It's all like, if you just want to read a Shredder story, go read Shredder kind of thing, which works really well for the franchise. Aaron, number 2.
So my number 2 was my number 1.
Sorry, before you say that,
go on.
We haven't crossed over. None of us have overlapped yet, which is really interesting. No. I knew this was going to happen. I don't think there's going to be any overlap whatsoever, which is just perfect. Please continue.
I was actually going to say, I think this is kind of going off piece a little bit, but I think my film and TV lists as well, there might be tiny bits of overlap, but there are some on mine that I'm like, I don't think you guys will have them. I'm not sure. Not that I'm trying to plant breadcrumbs for the next episode. But...
No, I agree. What I noticed when I was making my list for films is there was a lot of films that I didn't get a chance to see, whether it was just because I was busy, or like my cinemas near me are really crap when it comes to times. Like I think there was one like when Begonia came out, for example, and you could watch it like 10:30 at night. So I can't do that. I've got work tomorrow. So I've missed out on a lot of big films. So I'll be interested to see what you guys pick.
When you do an episode like this, where it forces you to go back and think about what have been your favorite things of the year, like, oh damn, I missed so much.
Yeah, I think I could have done an entire hour episode on my own of all the movies I have missed, because there was more than I would care to admit. There were so many.
Right, hit us with that number 2 comic book.
Right, my number 2 was my number 1 back in July or June, whenever we talked about stuff. Yeah, something has, and you're going to see this again with the film and TV things, is that like I thought I pretty confidently had a number one, and then something came along and kicked it out, which I'm not complaining about. But my number two is News from the Fallout. Again, another Image comic.
Yeah, nice.
But
Nice.
this, I think I raved about this one back in whenever we did the last episode, but this one gripped me from the moment I read the first page. It is. I'm going to give you the synopsis because, like, it's how do I describe it? It's not very. There isn't really much of a plot. Like, there isn't like intricacies, and there's not laying storylines and all that. It is quite simple, quite to the point, and it kind of thrives on visual storytelling. So the basic synopsis is that in 1962, Nevada, a nuclear bomb test goes horribly wrong and unleashes a contaminant into the atmosphere that turns people rotten. Otis Fallows, a private in the US Army, is present for the test and is the only survivor and flees the army base in search of a safe haven. But does a place like that exist? That's the rough synopsis. The whole thing is drawn in very scratchy, rough, black and white. Almost, it looks like it's drawn with like charcoal or chalk a little bit. And I mean this in the most positive way possible. It feels like a fever dream of a book when you're reading it because it is so there is very minimal dialogue. It is very much dependent on, like, the first issue alone is like, right, the test happens, everything goes wrong, and a good half of the issue is just the visuals of these mutated soldiers that he knew, which are genuinely quite horrific in the book, and then him trying to escape. That is most of the first book in a nutshell, and issues 2 and 3 and so on just continue that. There is a little bit more dialogue as you go on, but it strives on, like, right, we're just going to tell our story as visually as possible, and where we need to put dialogue we will. And I just love how gnarly and visceral and intense it is. Sometimes, I think I even said this back in June, that like a lot of comics nowadays can be a bit too reliant on the dialogue doing the work.
Yeah.
This, I think I was so enamored with it because it strips everything back as bare bones as it possibly can. Yes, there is dialogue, but that is not the point. It is just purely reliant on its horrific visual style, and that's part and parcel to Jeffrey Allen Love's, I don't want to say gorgeous artwork, but it does the job, if that makes sense. It makes sense. The characters almost feel like silhouettes. They don't actually feel like fully defined, well-drawn characters. The main character is literally just, I mean, from the front cover of the first issue, he's a silhouette with a gas mask on, and the eyes are the only white bit on him. Like, that's it's a bleak, very simple visual. And yeah, I've only read like the first 3 or 4 issues. I think there's 6 in total. The series has come to an end now, but from the majority of it that I've read, it carries on what the first issue set out to do. And if you're looking for like a very intense but rewarding read, this is definitely worth it. It's not for everyone, but like it's very good. I don't know how else to word it. It's just really good.
So good. Nice. I'd forgotten about that one.
It's
again,
kind of slipped under the radar a little bit.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of buzz around it when it came out. I think there was this, and then there was Lost Fantasy that both got a lot of hype when they were being released. And then like second and third issue, it just kind of got swept under the rug, which is a shame because this has maintained its level of quality throughout almost all of it. But yeah, it's really good.
This is why we need to talk about comic books more on this podcast, which I really will try and make an effort to do in the next 12-month period. Let's think about how we're going to build them in more for next year, for 2026, so that I don't know, maybe we'll do like a monthly book club episode or something like that, where we just like hunker down and focus on comics, because they need to be talked about more.
Agreed.
So without further ado, then, Michael, number 2 from you.
So, in a shock to no one, it is another Harley comic, but it is Harley and Ivy. Let me get the title right. I don't want to missell it.
There's only
Harley and Ivy, Life and Crimes.
There's only like 2 issues of this, so this has like come out of nowhere then to hit this chart.
Yeah, I think maybe like 2 or 3 issues in, and so it might be a little bit early for me to putting it this high, but I rated it that much that that's why it's number 2. Um, Obviously, Harley and Ivy, again, I am a massive Harley fan, so there's a bit of bias there, but their relationship is just so cool to me, and I'm a really big fan of it in the animated format in the Harley Quinn TV show. And
I'm
this
just going to
comic
point
book,
out,
yeah.
there is only one issue that's actually in stores. I know you have read 1 and 2.
Oh, okay. Well, I will bear that in mind. So, what I like so much about this comic book, like overall so far, is it kind of fills in some of their relationship that you don't really see or haven't really seen before.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives you some context clues. Like we know Harley leaves the Joker, we know she finds Ivy, and it kind of floats in that in between realm of them in the present and them in the past, and it kind of brings you up to speed if you're not familiar with them as characters and how they become. I think they're described as the most infamous couple in comic book history or something in like one of the descriptions, which I think is a really good descriptor for them, to be fair.
I was
But
just reading the synopsis. So the official synopsis for the series is, because you demanded it, a new series entirely about Harvey and Ivy's relationship. Witness the entire story of the DCU's #1 criminal couple from the very start. Eisner Award-winning artist and writer Erica Henderson. I love when it's a writer-artist, because I feel like when it's one person who does both, they understand their own story so much that they know exactly what they want to see on the page. Whereas I think sometimes you will get like a combination of a writer and an artist where the artist doesn't quite get the writer's vision and it doesn't quite fully realize. See their first kiss, their first embrace, their first fight, and the first time Harley went to the bathroom with the door open in front of Ivy. Brackets, that one's a joke. You're going to love the way this book makes you look. We guarantee it.
It's what you just said there. Erica Henderson, I believe, is the writer and person behind this entire situation. She has such a cool way of understanding these characters that I'm trying to navigate without spoiling. But like, for example, there's one fight scene where Harley and Ivy have to get out of a situation and it requires them to go through a corridor. And it's the typical like action sequence getting out of a building through a corridor, very John Wick-esque, if you will. But the way it is drawn is so unique, and I've never seen anything like it before.
Wow.
And that alone is what made me put it on this list, because it was just so well done.
Nice.
It blew me away. I just thought it was so clever and funny, and just everything about like the dynamic and the art, and it just all blends so beautifully, and it hits everything that you want it to hit, and it just does such a good job. And
Which
again,
not...
that writer creator combo, I think, is honestly the trick to this series. It's such the magic sauce.
I was going to say, it's not an easy feat either when you think how popular the animated series has been for their relationship with that fan base. So when you've got a retelling as brilliant as that cartoon, to try and do it differently in comics is quite brave so soon after.
I would agree, because I was watching it when I was reading it and thinking about Harley, the animated TV show, and I was like, is this just a retelling? Is this going to get boring? And then by the end of issue 1, I was like, no, we're in good hands. This person knows what they're doing. I was just like beaming with joy. I was like, this is the best thing I've read. It's so good.
That's amazing. I mean, to get number 2 on the chart after only 2 issues is major.
Yeah, it was just them little nuances and little details that I think only one person that's fully engrossed in this world, like writing it, creating it, drawing it, I think, and especially obviously as a fan of the characters, would be able to produce. So it's just so well done, and I think it deserves all of the praise, and everyone should definitely read it, because again,
issue number 2 is out on the 24th of December.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Merry Christmas Eve.
Go get it. It's so good. And you've got time to catch up because there's not that many of them.
Yeah.
So go get it. Honestly, it was so good. I forgot that issue 2 isn't even out yet. I was on my inbox the other day being like, where's issue 3? I was getting impatient again. I was like, where is it? I need it.
As soon as I have it, I will send it to you.
It's one of them comics where I'm immediately like, I need it. I need the full thing. I need it today. It was just so good.
My number 2 choice is also a DC book. My number 2 choice is Batgirl by Tate Brumble and series artist Takeshi Miyazawa. I've talked about this one before. I think this was in my list when we did the mid-year as well. This one has just hit its... it must be about a year and a half now. Yeah, we just had issue 14. So just over a year, actually, not quite a year and a half. This has been a really wonderful journey for Cassandra Cain's character, because she's been outside Gotham, which people have heard me talk about at length, how cool it is to see her separated from the Bat family, because she really isn't relying on any cameos or anybody else appearing. She is telling her own story where she's off and she's learning about the things that she didn't know about her mother, who is obviously Lady Shiva, aka one of the most deadly assassins in the world. It has taken some really big twists this year with what's happened with Shiva, and it's been across the whole 14 issue so far, although there have been mini arcs, those mini arcs have all been part of one really, really big overarching story. So kind of a similar way to Power Rangers, it's like a really slow burn. All these things are happening and there's lots of action in it, there's lots going on, and she's traveling around the world, but it's still telling one really, really long story about the character over that period of time, which has been really, really cool to see. And it's just one that every month when I get sent, so basically I get sent DC's solicitations, which is like what's coming out in whatever month it is, and the next batch that I will get will be, I think, February, so I see kind of 3-4 months ahead what's due to release. But that tells you when something is at a final issue. So every month I get the list and I just search for the word final. I'm like, don't be Batgirl, don't be Batgirl, don't be Batgirl. Like, don't say final issue, because I don't want it to end, because it's such an exciting story, and it just keeps going and it keeps unraveling, and we keep learning new things about who she is. And she now has a half brother that she never knew about, who's a really interesting character, who has ties to other heroes in the DCU. She might be... I nearly said a spoiler. It's just very exciting. It's a very exciting, very cool book. And it's cool to see a Batgirl title that's not just about Barbara Gordon, who is an amazing character in her own right, and I absolutely love her and adore her. But it's cool to see one of the other Batgirls taking the spotlight, which is why she earned my number 2 spot.
Very nice. I love how we're all walking that line of trying to not spoil anything. It's a really hard line to walk.
I mean, this is the thing when you get sent books a little bit in advance, because DC are very good. Their book, some of the companies, we only get them on the Friday when they're due out the Wednesday after. DC, for those who are interested, we do sometimes get them 3, 4, sometimes 5 weeks in advance, especially around the end of the year, because they'll obviously be taking time off over at DC. They tend to stack things up so that they're in the folder, so that, reviewers don't fall behind while Christmas break and stuff is happening. Which is why you have read issue 2, because I sent it to you super, super early, because it was sitting in the folder. So you do suddenly get to a point, like it's same thing with Last Starship from Star Trek, because I got an early glimpse at that, and like I just got sent the next issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that's not out yet as well, and is not out until next month. And it's like, oh, I've read that, and it's really, really cool. You're going to get to see. Don't say it. Like, stop talking. Stop talking before you ruin major thing. Okay, we are doing really well, because we're clocking in just under the hour, and we only have our number 1s to go. So I've clicked off the media assets, but I'm going to do it. Aaron, your number 1.
is well, like I suggested earlier, it's not an indie. It's not an indie. It is. And also, this makes Michael's one look funny, because he was doing it off of just 2 issues. I'm doing it off of just the 1. Batman Deadpool.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Interesting.
Yeah. Not to be confused with Deadpool Batman, which came out like 2 months beforehand, which is also just as good.
There was so much talk about these 2 books, and which one do people think the first one was better or the second one was better? Was it better when Marvel did it? Was it better when DC did it? Interesting.
See, the thing is, like, I've only read bits and pieces of the Marvel one, which is Deadpool Batman. This is where it gets confusing. They could have just picked a different name or something. But Batman Deadpool, which I have fully read and reviewed for the site, not a subtle plug at all, is it's the most fun I've had reading anything this year. Like, don't get me wrong, Tin Can was great, Lucky
Yep.
Devils is great, Neutron Fallout is a great read, but it's not particularly a fun one.
Yep.
This was just brilliant. You got Grant Morrison writing it, and Dan Mora supplying the artwork, and the whole thing is just sublimely illustrated. The writing, you can tell that. I think this is why I prefer Batman Deadpool over Deadpool Batman. God, that's confusing. I think the reason why I prefer it is because the more you read this one, you can tell that it's Grant Morrison just going, right, these two characters are in the same room. We're going to throw logic out the window, and I'm just going to make it a massive playground. And you can tell that both in the visuals, but also the storytelling, where I think this isn't really much of a spoiler because it's a self-contained story. But at one point, the two of them meet this person called the Phantom. What's it called? The Phantom Stenographer. And I honestly, the way he's drawn looks identical to Grant Morrison himself, and he is therefore like writing the story as they're meeting him. And I'm like, you can't get any. I think that's why I used to love reading Deadpool comics so much, is because they don't just break the fourth wall. And this is probably similar to like Harley Quinn as well. They don't just break the fourth wall. They kind of throw logic of the actual story you're reading in the moment out the window, and then just kind of play around with that. And this is like the best case scenario of that. It's a ton of fun. The visuals are incredible. There is also these weird hybrid characters that you can only really get in a crossover context that I won't spoil, because when I saw it just appear in a full page artwork, I was like,
I know what you're saying, mate.
Yeah, I was like, that's a combination I never thought would exist, and I kind of love it. They did a similar thing in the other one as well. And to top it all off, you've got 4 little tiny stories of other crossovers that just kind of nicely bookends the book.
Yeah.
You've got, just very quickly rattling it off, you've got a Constantine and Doctor Strange crossover written by James Tynion IV, Joshua Williamson, and Scott Snyder. You've got a Nightwing and Laura Kinney's Wolverine story written by Tom Taylor. There's a Harley Quinn and Hulk one where they go in search of hot dogs. That one is really fun. Written by Mariko Tamaki. And finally, you've got a Static and Miss Marvel one written by G. Willow Wilson. I didn't realize Static was just called Static. I was so used to the cartoon calling him Static Shock.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's a fun read. Those nice 4 stories are just a nice little bow to tie it all off. And I feel confident putting it at number 1, even though it is just issue 1, because it is a self-contained thing. And I don't think a second or third issue is going to expand on it. I feel like they're each going to do their own thing with different writers. But it is easily the most fun I've had reading any comic this year. And I think no matter which one you go with, Deadpool Batman or Batman Deadpool, you're in for a treat regardless.
And there is a Flash Fantastic Four, which is an exclusive to the DC Universe Infinite app. And then the next one that is publishing is Superman Spider-Man, which is releasing, I think, in March. We just have the announcement and the cover art for it, which is up on the website now if you want to check that out. But that's the next one in this long-running new line of Marvel DC crossovers.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Superman.
It's an awesome choice. I did not see that coming at all. That's really cool.
Yeah,
they sound amazing. I didn't even know that was. I've never heard that comic before. That sounds sick. I'm definitely.
They haven't done so. Marvel and DC haven't worked together on any crossovers in 2 decades. This is the first time in 20 years that they have finally got back together to do some cool crossovers, and they're kind of going for it, and they're really trying to do some interesting and strange mashups.
I think that's why this crossover worked for me more. So, like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed Godzilla X Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but that very much felt like a very bog standard TMNT story, and Godzilla's been plonked into it with like legit story logistics. This is what I want from crossovers, just full stop, where they're taking 2 characters and the fundamentals that come with them, and also using that for like story possibilities as well, and just playing with it. And like I said, Grant Morrison seem like you can tell reading it, he's having a ton of fun writing it, and
Yeah.
it's paying off because you're having a ton of fun reading it as well.
Nice. For anybody wondering about the drum roll, that was because I've just discovered the sound bar in StreamYard. It's not that we've suddenly become like a 70s game show.
Yeah,
That being said,
I've not got a drum kit just here.
that being said, I am going to amp up the tension factor with what is known here as heartbeat fast for Michael announcing your number one.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that gives me an aneurysm. I hate that.
Go.
So my number one choice, my number one comic of the year is It Killed Everyone But Me. I have
the book that I keep forgetting to send you.
Yes, but I keep remembering because it is that good. So that's how you know it's a good comic. I think
Nice.
I don't want to butcher it, so I'm going to read out a little bit of the description because
I know nothing about this other than you say to me, "We've missed it," and I go, "Oh no!"
So it is by Ryan Parrott, I believe, is the author.
He was absolutely flipping brilliant. Can I say? Nightwing, amazing. Power Rangers, amazing. Yes.
The writing is honestly just so brilliant. But so the synopsis is: in the summer of 1996, Sutton Reed had it all: a popular teenage girl with amazing friends, a loving family, a bright future, but it all came crashing down over one mysterious weekend that saw her friends brutally murdered and left Sutton as the sole survivor. Now, 3 decades later, the death and disappearance of 2 local teens strikes the Riverton community again, forcing Sutton, now a divorced single mum, to face the truth she tried so desperately to hide. It is the perfect comic book for me. Like, it's that really cool mix, very similar to Something Is Killing the Children. It's really like 80s inspired. It's very final girl.
The artwork I've seen.
Yeah, so it follows Sutton and it flashes between the situation that just described in 1996, this massacre, and then today. And it's these 2 storylines colliding into one another. And there's the mystery of what's happened in the past and what happened in the future and how do they connect.
Yeah.
And then there's also this supernatural element, which is a spoiler, which I won't get into. But yeah, so there's this storyline of this final girl, basically, who survived this massacre. What did she survive? Is it coming back for her? How will she defeat it? Yeah, again, I'm really trying to not spoil it because there is so much to spoil in it, but it's just so well done. The writing's really like sharp and very reminiscent again of like a really good 80s slasher, but with more of like a supernatural twist. And
Nice.
the art is really cool. Like it's very dark and very creepy, but in a good way. Like it has all of them really atmospheric elements, so it really drums up the horror. So yeah, I could not recommend it more. I've literally been screaming from like outside my bedroom window, like, please read this comic. It is that good. I'm obsessed.
It's Mad Cave Studios, so that's cool to see them getting a number one on one of our lists.
Yeah, I saw it on when we get the list of comics that are available to review. The title stuck out to me, so that could be quite fun. So I did a Google, and then I read that synopsis. And I was like, that kind of sounds like a really good TV show or something. So I gave issue 1 a go, and by the end of the last page of issue 1, like my wig was completely blown off, and I was like, I need the rest of this series immediately because this is amazing. It managed to cover a lot of ground in very little. Like there was only so many pages, like 23 pages. And by page 23, I was like, yeah, this is one to keep an eye on. This is going to be something. And I think maybe 5 issues in at this point, or maybe 4 issues in. And it just keeps going and going and going. And yeah, I love it so much. And I could not recommend it more.
I love how you just made me sound really professional when you were like, yeah, when we get sent the list of all the books available to review. That made it sound like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's
a really cool choice. That is a really cool choice.
You are very professional. You get a lovely list and options, and yeah, you do a very good job. It's very professional.
Not gonna lie, I go for the same approach you do, Michael, where I just see the title. If the title intrigues me, I'll do a quick Google and I'm like, yeah, I'll give that a go.
Yeah. Like sometimes I'll be like, I'm all right, that one sounds okay, or that one's good, but I'm not quite sure. And I'll genuinely I'll Google a couple of them and read the synopsis. But this one, I saw the title, and before I'd even Googled it, I was like, that is a comic that I'm gonna probably love. Like the title alone, I was like, yeah,
You just
go
know.
for it.
You just
Yeah.
know.
I just felt it. I read the title and I was like, that's a Michael comic. So yeah, I'm glad I read it because it's my number one of the year.
Nice. Well, my my number one of the year. Anyone listening to this or watching this is probably going, yeah, go on, just say it, just tell us because we already know. Like we already know. However, I do want a sound effect, so I'm going to play a gong. Absolute Batman. So the Scott Snyder, Nick Dragotta, Absolute Universe flagship book, Absolute Batman, which has just dropped its 15th issue. We've had an annual. We've had over a year's worth of storytelling. Had to be my number one of the year because it's Batman. But it is also just it. I mean, you could call this book. I mean, obviously, Absolute Batman kind of tells you that it is like absolute Batman, but it's also like unhinged Batman because it is the most gnarly, it is the most violent, it is the most like grotesque Batman that you could imagine. And I just love. I would love to spend like 10 minutes inside Scott Snyder's brain to know where the ideas for it come from because, like, we had the Black Mask arc, which was really, really cool, and that was the first arc of the story. And then it went into this cool little Mr. Freeze story. But Mr. Freeze was the most grotesque horror, like almost something is killing the children-esque type, like horror villain, the way he was drawn. And then we went into the Bane arc, and Bane is ridiculous. Like a lot of people mocked the cover when we got the first look at the cover art that revealed him because he was this tiny, tiny, itty bitty little head on this ginormous body. But he ripped Batman apart, like ripped him apart. It was so violent and gnarly and awesome. They really went head to head and it really posed like a massive challenge for this version of Batman who's already like hulking as he is. And the twists that led into as to what happened to Bruce and how the venom that created Bane got used on Batman and how that led to their final fight, which we just had, which has then just started off a new arc with Joker, who's equally as grotesque on the cover of the most recent issue. It is. I mean, I've loved everything that Snyder has done in the DC universe. I love most things that Snyder writes. He is so metal. Like he is just like the best. He is amazing. And it is just such an unfiltered, incredible version of Batman that it had to be number one because it is just one of those books that I'm like, when do I get the next one? And as soon as I get the next one, it's the top of the pile for that week.
You know what? I've recently started reading Absolute Batman, and
I did wonder whether that might be somewhere that you and I could cross over.
Yeah, I was this close to putting it at number 5, but I need to read more of it to like fully get into.
Where are you up to?
Really not that far. I've got the first like trade paperback of the Zone.
Okay, awesome.
And I've read that and absolutely love it. I've got Absolute Superman as well, but I haven't read that yet. But yeah, I need to read more of it because I just like
6.
Yeah,
in the first trade paperbacks.
I think half the reason why I wanted to delve into it is just to see, because like you said, the design choices for the villains.
Good. Nick is an incredible artist.
Yeah, it's like the visuals I've seen and the pictures I've seen are so unhinged that I'm like, that's kind of intrigued me on my own because I love Batman as it is anyway, and I just want to see what these alternative takes are. And I love the first issue already, so
amazing. It will surprise absolutely no one that a Batman book is my number one, but I'm sorry, it's unapologetically just one of the greatest books of the last 10 years. So it's so worth reading if you're not already reading it. And as Aaron has just pointed out, first trade paperbacks are available. So if you've not yet dived into DC's Absolute Universe, you can get Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman, and Absolute Wonder Woman Volume 1s now, and each one I'm pretty sure is the first 6 issues of those. And they all started within a month of each other, so they're all around the issue kind of 14, 15 mark now. So there's plenty of storytelling to catch up on, and it's really interesting. And we're finally starting to see their stories intersect for the first time as well. So we're about to see, spoiler alert, Absolute Batman and Absolute Wonder Woman share the screen for the first time, well, or page, as it were. But that's it. That is okay.
Yeah.
That is the first half of our Whip Round 2025. Those were our top 5 comic books each. Some really, really cool choices. 3 very different number ones. Okay, 2 of them do cross over into the big 2. Love that we got a Mad Cave Studios book, but we also had a fair amount of Boom. We had some Dark Horse. We had some IDW. We had some Image. We hit all the major players in there, which is really exciting. But again, would love to hear from you as to what your favorite comic books have been this year. So please do find us on all platforms at Get Your Comic On, or if you're watching this on YouTube, leave us a comment. Let us know what you've been reading this year and what you've enjoyed, whether you agree with any of the ones that we have picked, whether you've been reading one of the ones that we picked and maybe you don't agree, maybe you haven't enjoyed it so much. Let us know, because it's always interesting to hear what your opinions are. And yeah, we're going to take a very quick break in our world, but we'll be back very soon with you to talk about our favorite TV shows and movies from 2025. So please stay tuned for the next episode. We'll see you very soon. Thanks for watching, Super Friends. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button just down below and hit the bell so that you can get notified whenever we release brand new videos. In fact, there's 2 more waiting for you to watch right here below. So what are you waiting for? Why not click play?